Hello, everybody. Welcome to week number 2 of Design Details. I'm Jordan Pittner. I'm going to be working with us today in the visual category.
And I'm Mike Kruger, and I'll be looking at the music effect area.
And my name's Holly Paxton, and I'll be focusing on the color today.
This will never not sound like the beginning of a judge's tape to me.
Never.
The way we each of us go
Yeah.
in.
Nice, beautiful day. I see the front ensembles getting set up. The band's waiting
be the wind.
patiently.
I'm seeing some props around the field. Looking nice.
Right. I feel you on this.
Sailing away over in the distance.
Trumpets. They haven't even played yet.
Have you
No,
ever got before?
Say what?
Have you ever had a prop like do a runaway in a show before?
Yes.
We had a pretty serious.
Really?
Yeah. It's been a decade. We had a giant, it almost was too big that we couldn't put it into the Edward Jones Dome, because it was too tall for BOA. And we also had smoke coming out of it. But we had a giant candle for a burning candle that represented life going out. Anyways, this giant 15-foot candle gets rolled on the field in Oklahoma in 2010 in the middle of a windstorm. And that bad boy's flying around, and parents are just trying to make sure we don't have everyone eat it. Anyways.
Oh my gosh, Jordan was here for this, I think. We were in Utah with Desert Vista, and we had these big rolling props that had the and we had a big rolling stage, and we got off the field. It was all done. That part was fine. And we had put the big stage in sort of a off staging area, and it wasn't a very well-placed staging area because there were cars parked nearby, and one of the rolling stages just started rolling towards this very, very nice-looking SUV, and I was the only one who saw it. Now, you can't tell on the computer, but I'm about 5 feet tall. I'm very little, and I was wearing really big heels because who doesn't at a show? And I was the only one that saw the prop starting to roll towards this very expensive looking car. I just started yelling and ran to go grab it. I got it on one little rod on the corner, and it just spun around from the corner and did not hit the car. But it was so close. My heart's starting to race thinking about how scary that was. It's it's just rolling away down towards the car.
The only thing I really remember from that is that I was playing sound dude for that show. So I'm rolling the soundboard and also speakers behind me. Then they're parents coming back you'll never guess what Holly just did. And they're nothing in their hands, and they're so she was doing this and that. And I'm pack mule carrying both of these things. I'm that's really good. I'm proud of her. That's what I
was a celebrity for 5 minutes. It was
really
great.
It reached the last person off the field, which happened to be me. So yeah. Welcome those of you who are back for round number 2. If you're here for the very first time, we welcome you as well. This is Design Details. We're talking about what it takes to set yourself up for success in a marching band season from the very beginning. So we're looking at kind of the very first things that you do and going through the process over the next few weeks so you can sort of see what is all this pre-planning, how does it put us in a better situation by the time the season comes around. So last week we talked a lot about kind of 2 elements. What makes a great show, right? That was kind of where we started. So either of you, what's the Cliff's Notes of the things that we talked about in terms of what makes a good show last week?
Well, for me, one of the things that makes a good show is what do you get out of it the first time you watch it? So what is the entertainment value? What do you hear? What do you see the first time that show is performed for that audience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Holly really emphasized that last week. What does your audience get out of it the first time? Because some people will only ever see you one time. Cool. What about you, Mike? What was the big takeaway last week?
Kind of 2 things for me. One of it is kind of variety or contrast. And then also keeping kind of your keeping in mind your students. What's the goal? of the show, and what's the greater meaning when it comes to their overall like education.
Yeah, I think as educators, whether that's movement education or music education, it's really about how do you build something where somebody who's in your program for 4 or 5 years takes away valuable skills, valuable musical, what am I trying to say, like opportunities, and just the ability to grow as a musician and a person.
And just technique in general, right? I mean,
right.
Ideally you can keep growing that program, and people who enter as freshmen are expected to play at a standard that maybe seniors were just a couple years before, right?
Right.
So that's a cool thing of it.
Yeah, you get like 4 or 5 years to go from total beginner to, leader of the pack. And I think everybody's goal is that every year you just notch it up just a little bit better than the last one, right? That's one thing that I always, take pride in, is if I'm ever part of a group and then I come back and the group is even better. Like I think there's pride in that, because you're part of that growth into what they are now.
It's that rising tides concept.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So yeah, we talked about, Mike mentioned variety. We talked about how even if you have a good idea, having something to contrast it is really important too. You don't want to do the exact same thing for 7 minutes. You want to have highs and lows, louds and softs. And if you have an idea, like some of the ones we had last week, you want to find some ways to kind of change things. So that was kind of the first half of our show. The second half was all about the effect sheet. All right. The effect sheet, which we're going to dive into a little bit more today in a different way, was all about how can you come together as a collaborative group and make something that is creative and like really squeeze all the juice out of your show, right? You guys are the idea generators. So that's really important. Let's go around the table one more time. So for the two of you, what was the biggest thing, the most important thing about the effect sheet that we haven't covered from last week?
Well, the probably the biggest takeaway, and the one that I always like for people to always remember, is that it's a collaborative process. And I know you already mentioned that, but everyone's working on it from the beginning, and their ideas are heard. If you notice, like, we didn't tell each other no, and so I think that's a really big part of it.
Yeah, and this is a part of what Mike said, and adding on a little bit, it's the collaborative process and involving as much of your staff as you can in that early design process that's going to help with buy-in and getting your staff to feel like they have a part in the show and a part in how the show is built, which helps the instruction, and it just trickles down to the students. If the staff is bought in, then they're going to be able to think about it longer and come up with more ideas, and then end up giving a better product to the students.
Yeah, I mean, remember at this point, if you're like what we're like kind of demonstrating here, or what you might be going through in your own season, remember that we're just starting the process. So there's a lot of things that are going to take care of itself coming up. So if you want to create an environment in which you're going to have success by like people trusting each other enough to make the details happen, you have to get the big picture stuff going. And so I think this is where this really starts.
Yeah. So like we've already said, that's a good point. We're at the beginning of this process. So, I said this a lot, like 2 or 3 times last week, but every group is different. Every situation is different. I want to ask you specifically, Mike, because you work a lot on the front end of this, process with organizations. When do these kind of conversations happen with some of the groups you've worked in the past? Like in terms of the calendar, right? If we're starting in August, when are people that you're talking about having these kinds of conversations?
So it depends. And it depends kind of in my involvement with the groups, because some groups only have me purely arrange. Some have me really, and they say, here's the storyline and here's the content. And some, and those are more just putting the puzzle together. But sometimes I have to create the actual framework. And so that's more like the design aspect. So those usually start earlier. Generally speaking, I know which groups I'm working with by December of the year before. And usually I have sketch work of the overall agreement. This is going to be about a 7 to 8 minute show. We're going to need this. Those ideas are coming to life by January, February. I usually deliver my first custom show the second week in February to my first client. And usually from there, it would be every 2 weeks or so. And so it varies, but generally, I work underneath the idea that you should have the win book by like mid-May at the latest with like everything you need, because you have to have the summer to work on more details that we're going to talk about and designing. And so if you work underneath that idea, we need several months to put the music together. And so conversations are happening pretty early now. And so generally speaking, January, February, most of the time, like these things are coming to life. And I think that's good, because even if it comes to life early and you don't come back to it for a month, that's okay. Sometimes you need a month. One of the things I like is like starting a design thing early and just saying like just all your ideas possible. So it's like an effect sheet you said, but it's about not a particular show, just about any cool like concept, right? And then we say, okay, go take that for a month and come back with show ideas.
Yeah, I have before compared show design to like farming, right? In the sense that like there's things that happen early, there's things that continue to develop or happen, right? You plant the seeds early, but then there's all this nutrition.
That's a great.
You can't like wake up 2 weeks before band camp and go, oh my gosh, I have to grow lettuce right now. It's due in 2 weeks. Like that's not how that works.
You could try.
In 2 weeks.
Like I can't farm an entire like 7 acres of lettuce over the course of, I don't actually know if I can.
But maybe we'll go to the store and buy some lettuce.
7 acres of lettuce is a lot.
We're going to be talking about today.
That's a good point.
That's more lettuce than we'll eat ever. Like,
I'm pretty sure 1 head of lettuce is more than you or I have eaten in the last year. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that my process is pretty similar. A little bit different, obviously, because the visual side, the writing drill stuff happens later. But in terms of planning, like there's a group I work with in Georgia, and we got on a Skype call like 2 weeks after the season was done. We just chatted. We just hung out. It was kind of like a postmortem thing, but it was almost talking about like what would the next year look like, you know? So that conversation happened crazy early.
I always think about like I kind of follow like the 1 month rule. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is so not when the things do, because that's a culmination of events, but like if I need the drill writer to be able to deliver the first movement or like have a certain goal by July 20th, right? Then they need to have everything they possibly could ever need ever in hand 1 month before. And they need to have the details and the information and to be able to be productive. So that means that a month before that, end of May, going into June, going into July, you need to have your, like numbers need to start getting finalized. So there's like a process there that sets up like your drill for logistical success and then like content success.
Right.
And so I always kind of follow like the 1 month rule, because I think that does allow a lot of time for people to like make sure they are prepared.
So for those of you watching right now, I think there's 2 things to take away from that. If you are the music arranger, the drill writer, the whatever, the person that delivers these goods to an organization, do not ever be late. Never. Just don't. Like it doesn't really matter.
There's no reason.
Yeah, right. That's true too. Like if you've set those expectations clear early, never be late. I would say that 90-ish% of the groups I've ever had conversations with about writing their drill, there's always been a conversation about the last person just wasn't getting it to us on time.
Yes. And this, there's a lot of culprits to this. It could trickle down. The thing is, one of the worst things if it starts with your music, because that's kind of the starting point for most people, right? And like that's kind of where like a lot of the foundation's built on. So it's a really interesting aspect in the sense of if your drill writer is 3 days late, that's not good, but that could be affected by things that happened before.
Sure.
Whereas the music writer, an arranger, in some ways, it might be other things, but it's not organizational or institutional. So what I mean by that is like, it's not stuff you're getting paid for. Mm-hmm. So if you're getting paid for delivering a product, we're working on a show right now, and they were saying we needed June 1st. And the guy I write percussion with on it, we very quickly agreed. May 15th was like when we need to have that in hand. And that's just because what if they need a week or two and they say, okay, you know what, I have a little change now. Yeah. That's okay. So that's the other thing is like, if you wait to the last moment, you don't allow for edits. And I think that's a really, really big problem. It's like, we have to put it on. Well, what if it's not good?
Yeah. Plus there's people like, I'm looking at this from the color guard perspective. You can't start planning anything until there's music. And if you're like talking with a drill writer a lot, then, you know, you have some idea of like what your drill and staging is going to be, but there's a lot of stuff you just can't start writing choreography until you know what the drill is. Because there's some stuff that just will not work if the color guard is moving right and all your choreography is moving left. So, you know, when these timelines get pushed back, it just makes it harder and harder for the people even further down the trickle.
Yeah. So I always think of it this way. We're all band nerds. We were all in band, almost all of us, right? We almost all heard our directors, and I've said it myself. If you're 15 minutes early, you're on time, right? Like, we don't let our kids, we don't want our people showing up right there or right after. And I always look at it as kind of just like that on a larger scale. Right. Like, it's just you know, it's just really important.
And what a great impression that'll make too on the people you're trying to do business with. That brings me to number 2. So that was number 1. If you're a designer, if you're a creative, if you're a person who is packaging a product to an organization, be early, never, ever be late. All right. That's like the most likely thing to get you a lost job. Number 2 is if you're a director, if you're somebody who is part of ordering those things to a person, you're hiring somebody to do those things, set clear expectations, right? I've heard directors before say, you know, our band camp starts end of July. Okay, cool. That's great. Let's make sure that we know, okay, when do we get numbers? How many days are there until you need something, from the drill side at least. But so anyway, not to belabor a point, but just set clear expectations too. That way there's an agreed upon conversation on both sides of that.
And I think the next step to that is, and this is the part that's tricky, because I've been on all ends of this aspect before. If you like what your designers are doing and what they're creating, but they are late or there's a problem in what's going on, and you think that it's worth like figuring out, communicate it. Yeah. So if you see the value in what they're doing, then you want to keep them. That's great. What I'm getting at is, just because someone messes up and they're late doesn't mean that their stuff isn't great. It just means that has to be like, that has to change. And so if you want to keep what's going on, make sure that when you set clear expectations, you follow through. You know, if you just aimlessly just agree to the drill and don't say anything, and then that person isn't brought back, it kind of leaves them to wonder what's going on and how do they get better from that too, right? Yep. So I don't know, just set expectations and deliver.
Well said. Well said. Cool. So that's kind of a little bit of a deviation onto the topic of like, hey, how do you make sure these expectations are met? But it kind of brings us into the next part. So today's episode, we're going to shift gears a little bit. So we've been talking about like setting these expectations for things, but we know we're going into a season of uncertainty, and we don't really know kind of what things are going to look like. So I've heard a couple of people talk about, well, hey, what if I decide to do a stock show this year? What if I decide to pre-purchase my music? It's something that's already written. How does that affect my budgetary concerns? And also, but like, how can we do this process we've already been doing, the design details, in a stock show?
And it's a really important conversation that directors in particular, that you start having internally first to figure out what you're going to do. And what I mean by that is that we really don't know the state of what's going to happen. So you might be thinking right now that you can have a custom show, but what happens in the event that we have a season, but it's not in time to have a camp, and you don't have the time to do a custom show, and like something that's maybe even a little more difficult. Like if you know what I mean. So we don't know what things look like. So this is really important in general. This stock idea, the idea of a stock show, because you might not be expecting it yet, and it might just come across your way.
Yep. So let's start with a little bit of brainstorming. So there's some obvious setbacks, some bumps in the roads with our process we've talked about so far with stock shows. But let's first just talk about like, what's the benefit of a stock show?
You can get it right away. Like there's no wait time. There's no like, oh, well, maybe it could be this or end up like, there's not mystery to it. You know what you're getting. You can get it right away. And I'm imagining band directors who are getting hired at the end of May, and maybe your predecessor did not plan a show. Buy stock. There's good stock material out there. Just, it's good for the short term. I need something and I need it now. There's a commercial about that, right? I don't know. I need money now. That's what it is.
That's the one. That's the one.
I need music now.
Stock shows are an interesting thing. It depends to me. In many ways, I think what has to drive the stock show or the decision not to, in many ways, is kind of led by director vision. And so what I mean by that is, where do you align your resources? So there are some phenomenal programs out there, wind ensembles, right? High school wind ensembles, that you would think that would equate to doing custom marching and maybe competitive, but they don't. They do stock shows on Friday nights for their bands, and it's great and it's fun. And the wind ensemble is the focus of that organization. And so I think in some ways stock depends a lot on budgetary and kind of where your resources are. And so it's interesting. One of the nice things, like Holly says, is you get it quick, but you also can get it pretty cheap. And so, and I say cheap because that could vary from, place to place. But what I mean by that is that you can get a 3-movement, 7-8 minute show for a significant lower price than a custom, right? Like a fifth, right? And so that's the other thing. You get it quick and you get it for a really good price, which, depending on your resources, say it's because you don't have enough of a budget, well, then you can save some money and you can put that towards something else you need.
Yep. So yeah, there's a clear financial and a convenience standpoint. I know several directors right now who are saying, well, we want to do this show, but we're kind of in a place right now where we're not sure what the season's going to be like. We don't know if we want to put all of these resources, all of our chips into this show when we don't really know what things are going to be like.
That's 100% where I am with my college band.
Right.
Is where we have a show lined up in a perfect world. We have a show that we have to prepare.
Right. Yeah. Right. So who knows? There are setbacks to a stock show. The first one that comes to my mind is just, last week we talked about potential music selections and what you're able to do. There is still some variability there. Maybe you like pick one piece and then another piece and another piece. But if you're looking at a full package show, like 3 movements that are related to each other and arranged by the same person, you're a little bit more hamstrung that way.
All right, Jordan, we got to go back. Okay, yes, I messed something up. I meant to say something right before you went onto this. What I meant to say that segues this is it's whether you go stock or not, and like what Jordan's talking about with like the musical selections could also vary on where you are as a design team.
Right.
So if you're a younger staff and you're thinking that you could do really great things with a product, a process that's not very hard, one that you're not really ready for yet, or one that you're just starting to get into, stock might fill those needs. So like with Jordan was saying, like a stock show has like pre-made music, but maybe you visually feel like you can do something stronger there. And so it's an interesting thing. I wasn't really thinking about that until you said that.
Yeah.
It was like, it's something that like stock could be used just because that's what you think your strength is. And that's
it's like
totally
a stepping
cool.
stone.
Right. And like for a year or two.
you're designing the whole thing.
Right. I mean, right. And so that's just one aspect I'm thinking of. So like, that's a good thing about stock. Like and then you were saying like one of the setbacks with the music.
Right.
And then I'm done being back in time. I'm done being in the past.
Well, no, I mean, that's a perfect relationship to kind of what we're talking about. Like, it's like the difference between going to one of those like painting classes where you like there's somebody up at the front and they're like, all right, they kind of Bob Ross your way through like some sort of painting, right?
Bob Ross.
Yeah.
My man.
It's like, yeah, right. Like that one
Right
back there,
behind us.
right? Yeah. So it's like the difference between going and having somebody show you, okay, here's the structure of what you're doing, but you still have to do the job, or having a completely blank canvas and saying, all right, create a landscape. So,
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. There could definitely be some good to that. What we want to show you today is our effect sheet, where we're at, and how that changes based on the music. So we have picked out. We have picked out a show. It's actually a show that Mike arranged previously. You want to talk to him just a little bit about the show as I get us set up here?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about like the three movements and how like we incorporated into like our concept today. So all three of them are like stock. They would be considered stock now, meaning I have already custom arranged these shows. So the creation's already happened. So sometimes a band might want one of these shows or one of these movements. We have to adapt it for them, and that's fine. What these arrangements are the wind parts, and that came with upfront design and planning from the team and creation of the wind score and a piano or synth part that then a percussion writer or an arranger uses. So like you're not going to hear battery and you're not going to hear a lot of things coming up because that's not my writing, so it's not appropriate for me to share that, you know. So you hear the wind part coming up. So the three selections we have is Rite of Spring, which was written originally in 2012. And that represents an idea of rage. We have Hide and Seek, and Gymnopédie #1, kind of a merge of the two. This was crafted in 2015, and this was originally custom show that the director had a strong soloist in, and then was adapted. And then the third movement is Ode to Joy, and which we all know and love, written originally in 2015. So all three are now available as like stock shows, right? So a custom show of this nowadays could go for thousands of dollars, but a stock show like this would be a couple hundred, right? And so there's a considerable difference. So that's what we have to work with. So those three ideas, rage, reflection, kind of inner reflection, and joy, are the frameworks of the construct of this show.
So we have met. This is our template that we used last week that shows all of the ideas that we've come up with over the week, right? We've kind of done some of these things on our own. And what you're going to see today is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the hindrances we have, because this is a stock show. We can't really change the music. But what we can do is pick some of these ideas we've had in sort of the way we were doing last week, and we're going to show you the next step. So at this point in your process, if you've been following along with us, what you've done so far is you've had a meeting with your staff, and you guys have just thrown ideas onto the wall. You know, every single person said, hey, I have this idea for this, and I have this idea for this. And, you know, like last week, we talked about a balloon show. And one of the things we said was a hot air balloon. The other thing we said was like the origin story of it, right? So some of these things aren't going to like necessarily mesh with each other, right? But that's okay. This is the part where we take some of these ideas and we start to refine them. So the questions we're going to be asking is, what are the ideas that we are excited about? That's going to be the first thing that we're saying. So what are the things we're most excited about? And then down here, you'll see, because we only have these three movements currently, this is what we've got down here. We've got our master list, and then opener, ballad, closer. So the way this is going to work, it's real simple. As we go through this, basically what you're going to do is watch us have our next staff meeting, and then we're going to kind of reflect on it after we're done. Okay. So the things that we know right now, without a doubt, is that Rage, the Rite of Spring, is going to be our opener. So let's go ahead and put that in our music selection for the opener.
Mm-hmm.
Google says I can't do that. I say, don't
Control
tell me what
V.
to do.
You know, man.
Don't tell me what to do. What's
Got here, Google.
next? So ballad. Did you guys hear that? Oh man.
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
Which is
boy.
unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
Ballad.
I was raised in East Tennessee, and I'm not ashamed. And our closer. I'm surprised these don't have the effects on them. I'm going to duplicate these. Duplicate. I'll fix that in just a second. But let's do this. Will be our closer. So that'll be Ode to Joy. Let's rename it. We'll call it Ode. Yo. This we'll call, help me out, Hide and Seek.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I felt the need to label that one completely, but not Ode to Joy. Okay.
Not much shorter.
Right. Hide and Seek. We'll just kind of vomit that in there. And this one we'll call Rite of Spring. Okay, cool. So that's what we know. So when you're doing a stock show, this should be the first thing that you do. Okay, these are our movements. This is the song that we're playing. Boom. We've got our music selections done. We are done with that part, right?
Easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
So we're finished. So I want to talk to you guys. We haven't talked in a lot of depth this week. It turns out that starting this MED thing takes a lot of time, and that all of us have other jobs that we do, and those also take time. So we haven't met as much as we hoped to this week. So let's talk. What sorts of things excite the two of you about this show that we should really start focusing on?
I'm really excited about the potential use for color in this. I don't want it to turn into the exact visualization of the movie Inside Out, but I like the idea of associating like colors and textures with the music, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, how about we start with that then? Let's develop that, because I kind of have some thoughts on that as well. What do you see when you think of color? Like, tell me a color story through the show. Do you have one?
No.
Oh, okay.
I see one that's more like fire to light, fire to like fire to like dark blue, like fire to blue, like red to blue to maybe
shiny
gold. I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, like that's the only thing that I know in my deep heart is that there's lots of gold
at the
and
end.
Lots of sparkle in the final movement.
Okay, let me tell you what I see, because it's a lot of the same. So when you're talking red at the beginning, what I imagine is like charred, warm colors. So like reds and oranges, but also like either a texture of, like it's been burnt, like the edges are charred, like those kinds of colors.
Yeah.
To where it's a little bit like just angry. So where would be the best place to put colors, do you think? Would that be
effects, probably.
Effects? Okay, sure.
Because it'll get absorbed into color, easy peasy.
So charred, reds, oranges. Let's start there. Okay, so charred, reds, and oranges. I see like, I see blues here too, but I'm
blues
thinking
and silvers.
Like blues and okay, cool. I was thinking like purples. I was imagining like kind of that underwater sort of like.
Yeah, one of the ideas on the master list was like a reflection, and talking about mirrors, and silver is another way to.
Good point.
I like the idea of silver.
Especially if we're talking mirrors, I think that's great. So okay, so blues and silvers. I'm imagining something that I had here that really excited me. Where did I put it? Where are we? Does anybody see that?
The second to last one in effect ideas.
Right. So I was imagining like something from the front just being very like soaring, really kind of slow, floaty blue colors coming up from the front, from the guard, somewhere during that, like the first 3 notes of the ballad. So maybe that's something that we're interested in. So I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to put it over here. That might be a staging thing because it's going to happen from the front. So I'll add that to it as well.
Okay.
From
it would be cool if there was like, I know we're telling this sort of like color story, but what's the motivation behind the color changes? Are we telling the story of somebody like faced with bad news who's going through this rage and then, sort of a thoughtful stage into joy? Like, maybe this isn't when like a stage is a grief show because joy is not one of those stages.
Well,
But
there's
like,
this
something.
this little. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback.
Me too.
You guys hear
I think it's
bad?
over. I think you're good now.
I'm sorry. Hello, is that me? I don't know.
I'm not.
Holly, I was thinking about that a little bit. This is where I get excited about this because we say these are the musical contents and we associate like rage and like reflective and joy. There's like this little part of me, just a tiny little part of me. It's like, what if we did like, what if it was like opposites attract, right? And like, what if we have the color scheme thing right, but it's backwards? And what if it's not like, you know what I mean? So there's always like different aspects here too. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
And that's one of those things that could make a lot of sense. Like at the end of the season when you've got all three parts on the field. But I'm not sure about what programs you guys have worked with in the sense of like your timing, but there's been plenty of shows that I've been at where we've just played movement 1 or just been able to get movement 1 and 2.
Oh,
so
yeah, right.
Would it make sense if the whole show's not on the field? Because that can, I don't want to say tank your scores, but it can definitely tank the read if you need the whole thing to understand what's going on.
Just to add a differing viewpoint. When I heard this music, I heard it in an incredibly like the movement 1 was like something's being torn apart. Like you've ever had if you've ever been torn on like a decision or you feel like you made the wrong decision or something like that and there's like a split in your mind, that's what I imagine. And like the rage, the anger is like something that you're not proud of that you did. And that's kind of what I hear in that is like there's a separateness. And then part 2 is like a reflection. So those two things are looking at each other. And it's kind of like
a mirror. I mean, what if there's an idea of what if you have different colors with the same same design.
I mean, if we use a pre-show to help introduce that concept of like a decision has been made, even if it's like a mini one or a voiceover, like I think voiceovers can be very, very powerful and help clarifying content to the audience without, it doesn't need to be so outright that it's like, here is what our show is about. But it can definitely set the tone.
I just want to, I believe it's in the folder, Jordan, and if we go through anything. But there's always things you can do, it's kind of like a pre-show built into this idea in the sense of if you are using this show and you have to get percussion parts, you can work with your percussion arranger to set up the pre-show because a lot of times it is front ensemble or piano or synth bass or electronics or something.
Sure.
And that can become part of it. So it's just kind of like strategic planning, right? So if you're like, oh, maybe I like that idea and I want that extra half minute, chances are you can get that done pretty reasonably.
Right.
And so this starts with Rite of Spring. So put the Rite of Spring solo and the alto sax that you hear come up and you got your pre-show.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, those things could happen. If we're planning this and we need to create another tab, we can do that.
Yeah, right. So we can.
Is what I'm saying.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. Cool.
I actually think we might have that option open.
Yeah. Yeah, we do, and I can.
Cool.
I did some deleting earlier today and didn't. Let's just duplicate this. Let's say pre-show. Let's listen to a little bit of the pre-show, right? Yeah, we'll delete that. Okay, cool. So now we've got our pre-show tab as well. Let's listen to just a little bit. I mean, the pre-show, I think I actually need to download that one. Got it. All right, so let's listen to that one. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
Yep, we hear it.
So.
Gotta love that MIDI.
I don't hate it for the saxophone. The articulation at the beginning gets me sometimes. Okay. Let's listen to part 1 as well, so we can see what we're introing into.
So,
sorry, Mike.
Well, just to give an idea, is like that. That's nothing complicated. So
right.
when to give it a little bit of insight is, I wish we could say we did not plan about talking about a pre-show, and I threw that file up here just in case. Right. But that was written after this. What you're about to hear was actually written first, and then we made that decision because the show concept when it was originally composed was a pathway show. So we wanted to form a pathway. So yeah, so like what I'm getting at is that is not hard. That's some chords that you can outline and the Rite of Spring theme, right? Like most people can arrange that. You know what I mean? You can take it on yourself. That's not uncommon for directors to try to take on that kind of thing on yourself. In fact, it's a pretty fun way to get going.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So anyways, here's part 1.
So let's listen to what we're going into here. Part 1.
Percussion going on here.
So obviously the context of the actual piece, Rite of Spring, we're talking about, there's like a lot of context of like, I always think like ritual sacrifice is always the thing that comes to my mind here, right? And
we just started off with a bang, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I imagine this being angry. I imagine actually having people doing like tribal dancing body through this. So like I'm imagining a lot of like, maybe the trumpets have their little feature and there's literally like a circle of people doing tribal dancing things around them. I think that would be something that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. To provide a little reference for the folks listening, the silence you hear would be filled with percussion, and the piano part you're hearing is not a piano part. That's kind of a courtesy. Instead of the front ensemble writers and the arrangers having to just start with nothing, they usually outline chords and like a piano score for them. So what you're hearing is like a little bit of a structure, so that way their job's a little bit easier.
Right. Okay, so we have that idea. Hi, Pepper. Cool. What else excites you? Without getting into too many details and creating a concrete structure yet, what other kinds of things do you feel like need to be in this kind of show in some sort of capacity?
Are we still talking movement 1, or are we talking let's start putting stuff in movement 2 and 3?
I think
because I've got a lot of opinions about those ones.
Right. In the context of what we're doing today, since we have an audience, probably going piece by piece to start today is probably the best, right? So let's spend a few more minutes on like what do we really want to have in movement 1? What kinds of things should be featured?
Well, you pick the music. This is the piece that's been picked. So
right.
One of the things that's coming up is kind of a feature of a breakdown. So it's coming up. It's trumpets use mutes, okay, in the arrangement. And because of that, like there's a staging thing coming up, right? Unless you're going to have trumpets with mutes in their hands, you got to be thinking about that. So I'm thinking of, in this movement, I'm thinking of a staging thing. So I'm not sure what's going on exactly yet, but I know that at some point in the next couple phrases, trumpets have to just start doing something. And if they're going to start going somewhere, we might as well make that look cool or be effective.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think there should probably be, I think it's a comment on the other page, color guard starting off with weapons. My gut is it starts with rifles and then like half the line switches to flags halfway. I don't think it's really the movement for sabers. quite yet, so I would say rifles
Okay.
versus
Cool.
weapons. So
Makes sense to me.
Or sorry, flags. You said not sabers.
yes,
Not flags. Okay.
Yes.
Later transition to flag.
can you choose
Okay.
weapon to rifle? I think the saber will have a home in the second movement a lot more appropriately than in the first one.
Cool.
A real important consideration here is especially if you did the pre-show that you heard at the beginning and the way this movement ends, which I think we'll play some more of this so you guys can hear a little more context. But basically, we have to consider you're not going to hear soloist alto well in the field. So the next thing to consider is the microphone, and is that staged or is that a wireless? Most people are going to do wireless now, right? So how's that work? One thing I saw, I think I might have posted on there, I think earlier this week, was the concept of can the front ensemble or percussion be divided into multiple units or groups, or can there be 3 stages of something that resemble each emotion?
Right.
Across the field.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's a cool idea.
I don't know. I mean,
Right.
I'm just throwing out stuff to think about from the last page.
Yeah. This is really good.
I don't know.
So we've got, obviously I want to kind of step back here and talk about this from a live stream standpoint. We still have a lot of questions about this piece and what we're doing, right? This is what I'm talking about when I said this is like farming. We can't make all of these decisions in one night, right? This happens from saying, hey, here's what I think. Here's what I think. Here's what I think. Okay, well, where's the common ground in that? Or who has an idea that's oh, that could be really neat, right? So we're talking about those kinds of things.
The only thing that exists right now in our universe of MED marching band right here is 3 musical selections.
Right.
There's no story. There's nothing else, right? So we still have a job to do, and there's still a lot of content. I mean, so much. So it's fun to see this kind of go into kind of a crazy direction because to be honest, I mean, like Jordan said, we do this and just we're just doing this. We didn't really plan out what we're saying to each other, right? And so I didn't think that we would initially have so many things that we could piece together, and it's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think we owe it to the audience to try and find those new pieces. I feel
for sure.
Oh, I mean, especially I always think of the drum corps level, the things that happened 20 years ago were awesome. But if we were still doing, in my opinion, if we were still doing the same things we did 20 years ago, it really wouldn't be much worth buying a ticket to go see them. You know what I mean? You've already seen it. And so that's why I think it's incredible how they continue to push the envelope and go, I'm going to do something different because we owe it to the audience. We owe it to the people to see something new and exciting and different.
You got me thinking.
Tell me more.
Well, we were breaking down movement 1 a lot, right? But you got by just talking about just by just talking, the thing that just went through my head was doing something different, right? So I'm thinking in this show that we're designing right now, I'm thinking okay, something different, but something that could be done, that could be effective. And part of me is thinking we said what do we add to the pre-show because we needed to add something, but something happened, and that's what. Well, then we probably need to have that resolution, whatever that is, in Ode to Joy, right? Mm-hmm. So so there's starting to become a storyline in my head. I'm starting to see, okay, I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is, right? But I know that there is something now that has to happen to initiate and resolve this show. Mm-hmm. And we kind of have an idea of where that could happen.
Right.
So there's some foundational work starting to happen.
Yeah, right.
If we decide to go that route, and if we don't, cool.
Up here, before I put mirrors, frames, platforms, I was thinking about, I know mirrors have been done a lot, but if we're talking about a split sort of thing where we're I imagine it being kind of like regret, or like the anger part being sort of regret. Um, maybe if we use something like mirrors, they could be like disjunct across the field, making really weird patterns with the lines and things across the field. And then as we get to Ode to Joy, those mirrors are all, unifying with each other on the back, and so they're like kind of in a straight line, so they embellish everything because they're all together.
If you had Holly, this is a question because I really just have no idea. If say you have like a like a frame of a mirror, but you didn't have mirrors, right? So you had like two guard people mirroring each other. One's more reflective, right? Yeah. And one's not. And they're for moments they're lined up, but then for moments the other one breaks away to like choreography really cool. And routine work from rage. Was that something that people would pick up on?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I noticed this before. I've seen this choreography before.
Yeah, and it could definitely make it even easier to achieve, like, on a prop sense, because, just calling back to Desert Vista again, we had these giant mirror-like props, and it took a lot of work to get that surface to be reflective versus, creating a artistic empty frame. You could do a lot with that, too.
So now that makes me kind of think, if that's an element that we're able to add in, to me, that's starting to fill in a content idea of like a theme in the sense of this could tie into yourself. Like, right. So like something internal. And so like, because like that presents like a battle almost. So if that's something like, that's an effective thing that could be cool, that could work. I don't know. But that's something to think about.
It's hard when we don't have like a lockdown concept, because we could, last week we did the like judges one, and we were able to fly with all these different ideas. I think it's a great idea. But I think once it, when we lock down an idea, we can really
so like
explore stuff like that.
When you make a decision that you regret because you were angry, right? Whatever that is, like kind of self-destructive behavior.
Yeah,
right. That's what I'm imagining. So it's not. I guess I didn't have it in clear words earlier, but that's what I imagine. Like, you're angry, you're mad, and you make a bad choice. Mm-hmm. And then the hide and seek is like the reflection of like, why did I do that?
I think in some ways that gives literal meaning to the hide and seek title in some ways.
Right.
And that's a part of this that I'm thinking like maybe that's the name of the show. And and so like, because like, you know what I mean? Like hide and seek. And that could be just a cool name, because now I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of what's going on in the show.
Right.
And so like emotionally, like based on what kind of that concept.
Yeah, and it could really change the way you look at the final movement, Ode to Joy, because instead of it being like, yippee, happy, it's just like sort of a stage of self-acceptance. So maybe that wouldn't be the point for giant shiny gold flags. It's maybe something a little bit more muted than, if we had gone with a different show concept.
Right. Wow.
Lots of things.
That got deep.
So, like, I don't know. This is one of those things, like, I know we're not done with this, but for people watching and who saw our previous episode, this is a very different energy in how we're conversing about this, because instead of just coming up with every 1,000 billion ideas we can possibly come up with, we're being much more reflective and thoughtful. So it, we're not less excited about this. We're just, this is a lot more like thoughtful.
Yeah, we're at a place where we don't have to, worry about anything more than this, which is nice.
Right.
Like, so you shouldn't be talking about the stuff like we did last week at this point. You should have like a solidified like concept or like a selections in your stock choice. But like if we left this conversation with the movements knowing each movement and the color idea and one or two guard moments and the ritual idea and various things like that, that's enough where with one more week of time, more details are going to happen. And your arranger doesn't, if you're doing this in February, you don't need to give it to your arranger for another month. You got 4 more weeks. So there's so much time.
And with this show where we have the music picked out, notice how like we had the name Emotions, right? But we're like, we could have gone, like I had one of the things I said was like colors like Inside Out. We could have like different colored orbs or something like that. But now it doesn't really feel like that's what we're doing. That's something we could have done, but now it feels like we're moving into something very different. So even if you have a stock show and there's like, you know, I remember last year I wrote a show that the director got Dvorak's Ninth and a couple Beatles tunes, and then turned it into like the Lewis and Clark expedition. Right? And that's so different than what those tunes were about, but they made something holistic based on those pieces they put together.
Right.
So let's talk about just a couple more ideas that we're excited about that we'd love to have in the show. So if you have any other things, the only other one that I have that I want to try so badly, you guys know what it is? I can't find it.
I'm not sure.
Right here.
Oh, okay. I figured that. Yeah, I saw that earlier, and I was like,
Have any of you ever put a vocoder on an instrument before?
So what's that say? I can't read that from. It's blurry.
So like the altos, specifically the alto in the ballad.
Mm-hmm.
I want to put like a vocoder or some sort of like effects thing. Have you ever done anything like that?
I haven't actually done anything for vocoder, but I mean, aware of how it works, right?
Right.
So it's pretty doable.
I want to try it.
I mean,
I don't know.
Listen.
In this theoretical show,
a lot of bands, a lot of groups out there have very amplifying their front ensemble at all have some capability.
Right. Even if it's just like an effect that sounds
right. Even if it's not like right.
Like if it's not like the analog like vocoder box.
I like that idea.
I think that would be so cool and so unique. It would be like a standout thing. Like if people in 10 years are talking about this show, they'd be like, so, you remember that show where they had like the vocoder?
Yeah.
Right. I think that would be a stand apart. Anything else? What else we got? I'll go back to the master list.
I would definitely like to, I don't know, like enter, depending on where the show goes, if it's appropriate, I would love some giant silks, like the really, really big ones. Because I know we haven't listened to it on this live stream, but the music at the end of the Ode to Joy is just very big. It's very much a closer musically, and it just screams giant silks are super shiny, and like
do we want to listen to it?
Your tushies off on the effect sheet, but like it's either one of those big impacts with big silks or big impact with spinning.
And the movement's not very long, so that moment could last almost half of that movement.
Let's give it a listen. I'll play kind of from this midpoint through the transition so we can listen through the end.
Again, it's a percussion drafts. It starts with like a little bit of a percussion feature, which we'll talk about tomorrow. I'm not hearing it.
Really? Holly, could you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh. Interesting.
Well, that's why I was
dancing along. At first I thought it was me, but then I was like, wait a minute. Holly's doing a real groove.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll keep listening through the end, and maybe I'll try redoing this and see if that helps as we keep going. I kind of see the flags coming in sometime.
So I know what I was doing. I forgot I was looking at your guys' faces on Zoom and not over on the shared content thing for a second. Gotcha. That's why I wasn't hearing it. Gotcha. Do you guys so in the stock arrangement, like we said, a lot of times stock doesn't have, you can buy them. There's two different types of stocks. We should talk about that for a second. Mm-hmm. One of them is like a custom arranged show that's now available for purchase for much lower cost, and one of them is the stuff that you see kind of like with the Rangers Publishing Company or various other groups like that. They produce like a series, right? Those are usually a little bit cheaper. But like the concept here was an emotion show. So the stock stuff has moments built into it. Did you guys catch the Rite of Spring quote in the closer towards the end? I want you guys to listen.
Like, honestly, before we listened and like really thought about it, it's like it would be really cool if there was like a callback to Rite of Spring in here. And I was thinking about it and didn't even hear it.
I wanted to listen to it again.
Music theory professors from college, I was not good at the listening stuff, so.
I wasn't either. but I did okay. No, listen to it one more time. I want you two to guess or see if you can hear where it happens. Because that's where I think your guard moment happens right after that's presented. Listen to it one more time.
I feel like I'm back in college. Not the good part. Is it playing?
Oh, yeah.
There's no content.
I'm
not going crazy that time.
No.
I was like, I can't hear it in my head.
No, I'm sharing correctly. Let's try again.
There we go. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard it that time. Just a moment. Here we go.
Tell me what it is.
You do not get that when you get a piece by piece like stock arrangement.
Right. That's one of the perks of like if you do a stock that's like a stock show that's being like that was a custom show, right?
Right.
And that's one of the perks. And that's what we're kind of showing is like a lot of times I think directors think you either have to have like $10,000 or more to do like shows, and it's like, well, you don't. You can make some pretty cool stuff, and if your budget for music is only $1,000, well, you can find something that does relate. You can find something like this from many amazing arrangers across the country, right? And so I just think that's just one way of thinking about it. So like, I just kind of advice is be creative in the sense of like, don't just go to your main publisher to find stock. You can find really great stock for just $50 more per chart or so, maybe elsewhere. And it might be able to tie in themes like we're talking about that sometimes make like stock shows hard to work is because you feel like things don't connect.
Like disjunct.
Well, but there's solutions of that. I mean, that's the crazy thing. 20 years ago, there was a big difference. That wasn't as, I mean, obviously I said the internet changed things, but like, I sound old, but it's true. And so, I mean, there's access to tons of people who do great music out there.
Yep.
And you can contact programs that have done shows that you like. So maybe you have seen a group perform a show in the most recent BOA finals, and you're like, hey, who's your arranger? Can I like see if they've got other stuff? Or, I mean, people even purchase music from groups. They're like, oh, you just did this, and I'm in a totally other circuit, and you're never going to see me, and I'm not going to do the same show, but I would love the music. There's ways to, connect people that way.
Absolutely. So let's, one last time, let's think through what we've done so far. Okay. How far did we get in our effect sheet work in that like 40 minutes of time that we went?
Not real far.
Not super far, right?
No.
I agree. But the hope and the goal as you and your staff start to work through this is that the things you do move are the things that are going to be in the show. Or like in the case of something like a vocoder, we're like, we don't know how to do that. Like that's something that we're saying, we're going to make a concentrated effort to make this effect because we think it would be cool, right? So the things that you're moving from your master checklist to your like, hey, we're doing this in this movement are the things you're actually going to do. And one thing that I'd recommend, just kind of a small thing, is don't delete the stuff on the master list that you haven't done, because it's like in our pretend session right now, it's maybe February, March, sometime around there. You still got a while until August. And even then, you've got a while until October, November, whenever your seasons end. And maybe you're like, hey, we really need a moment here. Let's go back to that master checklist and see if there's anything that we could adapt, something that we totally missed that now fits perfectly in the show. Don't get rid of good ideas, right? Even if they don't feel like they fit, because they might be helpful. I remember one year I was doing a show, and that's exactly what we did. Like, we had this kind of dead moment in the show, and there were a lot of comments like, well, there's not really a lot happening here. We're like, well, what can we do? I know, let's look at the checklist, the master list that we used. Let's see what's on there. And we found something that worked really, really well for that group. So don't get rid of anything. Take your time, right? I like Holly and Mike a lot. We have a lot of fun chatting with each other. Hopefully you have a fun time with your staff too, and this doesn't really feel like a chore or something that you're like miserable doing. You can just have chats. I've had these things just go where we're like hanging out and talking and having fun and laughing, but they go on for hours. You know, maybe you don't have that time, but you give it time. We're farming, right? Any final thoughts on today's particular stuff from the two of you?
I think I want to reiterate, it's okay that it's going slow. It's important that you take the time to do it right on the front side, because it is a lot harder to change these things once they're locked into drill and put on the field. So taking the time to make sure that you like the ideas that are going into it in the front end will save you so much pain by the time you get to August and September.
This statement that I'm about to say could be true. Everything we just said for an hour is wrong. That could be true, but it's not. But the one thing that you could still take away, even if that was accurate, is that we're talking about stuff and we're trying to formulate a cohesive, comprehensive idea together. Like, we are working together to try to like create a good show. It's not alone, and we're not dissing ideas, and we're pretty open-minded about where people are coming from. And so ultimately, I think that stuff is pretty important, because I do believe students see through it. I think that some of the best teaching I've ever done was with teams that design the best. And I think that our students knew that. I think they knew we were excited about the show and that we liked what we did. And so I really do believe that if you're going to say that you want to do a great show and you have good intentions for your students and you believe in music education, but you don't take the time, even with limited resources, to kind of think through the show, then like it needs a little bit of love. It needs a little bit of attention. So that's what I think is really important about this, is like, just do something. So
we ask our students to do a lot of practicing. It's only fair that we...
Oh, we can't hear you.
You muted yourself in the middle of that sentence.
I was adjusting my window. Yeah, we ask our students to do a lot of practicing. It's the least they can expect from us, that we do a lot of preparation and a lot of practice on this side as well. So,
booyah.
Okay, cool. Just like Mike said last week, this is a process, not the process, right? So hopefully you found some things that are good for your situation. Here's an offer we're going to extend out to all of you. If you want to either do this for your show, or you want to do this with this show, it's just practice with you and a couple of your like good friends, staff members. Maybe you're not like the head director, but you're going to be. Maybe you're in college and this is something you want to work towards. Do this over the week and send it to us by like Wednesday night, and we'll look over it and we'll help you. If you want us to share it live on air, we'll do that. If you don't, that's fine. We can give you some tips and pointers anyway. But we would love to do anything we can to help you and your program out, especially with, kind of the way things are so uncertain tomorrow. I'm reading my notes. This upcoming season.
All the other days.
Like, what is a tomorrow anymore,
Right.
Oh, that was funny. I'm really bad at reading or typing and speaking at the same time. That's not something I can do. I was reading my notes about things I wanted to share. And of course we do have something coming tomorrow, which is what I was looking at. But I was speaking at the same time, which I should never do. tomorrow, not next fall. Tomorrow, we've got a website launch. We are officially launching our website for music effect design. You'll be able to find our videos here. You'll be able to find our super cool blog posts that will also be on the site tomorrow. We've got a few for you already.
Just go to musiceffectdesign.squarespace.weebly.godaddy.google.com and you're there.
If you want to take
Not explain. It's just musiceffectdesign.com.
Yep. You can
Easy.
find the things that we offer there and the ways that that we can help you, whatever that means.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. So next week, again, thank you for being here. Next week, we're going to talk about the differences in just some of the differences in what like a custom show would look like. And we're also going to move on to the next step of the process. So for all of us, thank you once again for being here with us. Thank you for those of you who came out to trivia last night or 2 nights ago.
Ooh,
we had a ton of fun. Oh my
So much
gosh.
fun.
That was so fun. Congrats to Will, our winner, as well
Good
as
job,
Sean, Dylan, some of the other people that were playing. We had such a good time. Yeah, thank you guys, and we will see you next Friday.
See you then.
Bye. See ya.